Welcome in, everybody. The second to final episode here of the Scholastic Sit Down on the 2025-2026 season. Dylan Ward's my partner. My name is Luke Jordan. We're going to recap some of the JV state championships, the girls' state championship, as well as look into the nationals that are currently ongoing. We just had BGHW complete their second game as we speak. So, nationals in the process. It's really cool to see how Illinois represents at the national level, usually always getting up near the top ranks, Dylan.
Yeah, and like you said, some of the games are already underway. Illinois is undefeated so far, so far a good showing for our boys here in the homeland, and we'll do a little recap of the games that have been played, and also talk about the future games and the format of this tournament.
So let's take a look at the JV state championships first and dive into those real quick. They were both shutouts of the winning team, and we started with the JV Blue division, which is just individual high schools, not combined. And it was New Trier taking on Brother Rice. An interesting note about this game, New Trier, this is their fifth team. They have four varsity teams. Their fifth team is their JV1, and it just goes to show you the depth of this organization as they would go on to win this one. Although outshot 21 to 19, Jacob Myers had a great performance to pull away for a state championship victory.
Yeah, Luke, you said it, fifth team versus second team, and for Brother Rice, they upset Lake Forest in the first round, or I should say in the semifinal round. New Trier with the shots on goal in the first period of 7-1, really shutting down Brother Rice. But then the Crusaders, they found their groove in the second period, outshooting the Trevians 12-6, but could not find a goal at the end of the day, Luke. And two power play goals for New Trier, Luke Maynard and Drake McNerney. Both score on the power play. McNerney's was an empty net, but still technically a power play goal. Drake McNerney with another one in the second period, and Lucas Linehan scoring with 1 second left in the second period. And New Trier runs away with the state championship for nothing. So New Trier boys, New Trier green, unable to get it done, but two state championships for New Trier at the end of the day in JV, and one more which we will get to later.
Yeah, Dylan, and I think that that last second goal before they went to the break was so crazy to look back and check on the video because you can see that puck crosses the line with a tenth of a second to go. So not just a last second goal, a last tenth of a second goal there, as that would bring us eventually into the JV combined state championship game following right after, and it was Maine and BGHW, the same matchup that we saw at the combined level, but Maine had the one seed here instead, and boy, did they prove it. They doubled the shot total of BGHW, outshooting them 30 to 15, most especially 15 to 7 in that second period, and they spread out their attack well. Dylan, three different goal scorers, three different periods, a power play goal in there as well on the one power play chance they had, and Anthony Napolitano with a 15 save shutout. Maine gets their nice little revenge here at the end of the season and wins the JV combined state championship.
Yeah, not a whole lot of special teams looks, but Maine shut it down and converted when they had to. 1 for 1 on the power play, 1 for 1 on the penalty kill. You can't ask for much better than that. And for Anthony Napolitano, where's number 99? The great Wayne Gretzky's jersey number. You don't see that often on a goalie, but he, maybe deserves it after getting a shutout in the state championship. And it is funny that we saw the exact same matchup in the varsity and the JV combined divisions, but Maine so evens the score, so to speak, in terms of state championships on the season and gets the 3-0 win over BGHW.
And if you really want to expand on familiar matchups, this girls' state championship game was actually a boys' round of 16 game when New Trier beat Fenwick. These two now meet at the girls' level. Fenwick, an unbelievable rebound to get to this position as the number four seed, taking on the number three New Trier Trevians, as both number one and number two nowhere to be seen here. York and Glenbrook were each collectively knocked out in the semifinal games. It was all chalk up until then. And New Trier here had the home bench and they took advantage. They outshot Fenwick 19 to 3 in that first period, outscoring them 3 to 1, walking into the intermission with a 5 to 1 lead, two goals from Levanzelo. I mean, Alexis Bornhoft, who's usually their offensive unit, 5 points a game entering this game. Just one assist goes to show you how deep this team can run. Fenwick was not finished, though. They were able to find 2 goals in the third period. Got a little bit dicey at the end, but in the end, New Trier holds on and they win a consecutive state championship at the girls division after pulling off the overtime thriller against Barrington last year. This one, a lot smoother sailing for the most part, almost until the end there, Dylan.
Yeah, and hats off to literally for Elizabeth Boveri, who scored a hat trick in this one in the losing effort. All three Fenwick goals in the 5-3 losing effort. She scored in the semifinal too, where I was on the call for that one. But New Trier dominant in this one. They had double-digit shots in every period and held Fenwick to single-digit shots in every period. And we saw both goaltenders get into the mix. Juliet Drake started the game. She ended up with the win. Alexis Sugarman gets subbed in the third period to play the final 11 minutes and 41 seconds. But New Trier, they delivered. I mean, 47 to 15 shots on goal is absolutely absurd. And Luke, you were in the building for this one. I couldn't make it, but talk about, some of the intangibles, what you saw at the rink, the atmosphere at Allstate Arena for this girls' state championship.
Well, first off, I mean, the fact that the ceremonial puck drop was by Kendall Coyne Schofield was surreal in its own. The fact that Rory Whetstone, our sideline reporter, got to even have a pregame taped interview that we aired as well. It just kind of felt like, whoa, we're doing this? Like somebody like that, an Olympic gold medalist, and the Olympics has been all people have talked about for the past couple of months. To have a player on the international winning team in that building must have not only been cool for me and the people up top, but also, of course, the players that were looking across her on ice level. That was a surreal moment in its own. Besides that, I was actually pretty impressed by the turnout because it seemed a little bit empty about good 20, 30 minutes before, and everybody filed in right on time. It was one side of all state in the lower bowl, and throughout those little middle sections, they were fairly filled. So I give credit to Fenwick and New Trier. It's never easy on a Sunday afternoon because it's Sunday, you're coming off of something on Saturday. Usually you can have church, you can have whatever that may be, but people still got themselves out there for that event on Sunday. And overall, just a fun game. I was excited that Fenwick was able to kind of make it really close at the end and get you thinking, but in the end, just could not find any more other than Elizabeth Boveri, who, by the way, is a freshman. I said it on the mic after. I mean, New Trier has 6 seniors. Fenwick, I think, has two. I might be wrong on that. Their captain, though, is Kate Mulvihill. She's a junior. These teams are going to terrorize others next year. I mean, it is. Don't be shocked if we get these two again. I'm not trying to clip farm and get another prediction right, but I wouldn't be shocked. That's all, Dylan.
Yeah, and then Kendall Coyne Schofield wearing the gold medal itself. So that was so cool to see and kind of makes me
Rory apparently got to hold it, and I
really.
said, "You are
Oh,
so lucky."
yeah, it kind of makes me wish I was able to get in the building for that one and meet her. But still, just a really cool experience for these girls. And you know that concludes the Wolves hosting at Allstate Arena. 3 great games, and hopefully many more years to come at Allstate Arena because that was a really cool experience for everyone involved, including us.
Yeah, Tim Weaver, Todd Benjaminson, everybody with the Wolves. Just want to give a quick shout out. That was professional. Um, just even as a broadcaster, being able to have the producer in my ear, it felt like you're doing the big leagues. So they take everything so serious there. You can tell by the graphics, the work they put in behind the scenes. So we want to make sure that goes recognized because they, of course, as Dylan just mentioned, and me rebounding off of it, they did an incredible job. Looking forward to more of that as the time goes by. All right, Dylan, before we talk about nationals, let's talk about the downstate state bracket as well.
Yeah, and this is it's one that people forget, but it is an official division of the Illinois High School State Playoffs, AHI, and they played at Nelson Center down in Springfield, Illinois. It was the Sacred Heart Griffins Cyclones against the back-to-back-to-back Pekin Dragons, defending champions. And Pekin, they opened the scoring early in this one, Luke, 11 seconds in. But Sacred Heart Griffin never looked back after that. They win it 8-1, outshooting Pekin 47 to 22, including 12 to 4 in the first period, 20 to 11 in the second, and 15 to 7 in the third. They were the one seed all year in the Lincoln Land Hockey League, which is the league of all the downstate teams, and they actually have a double jeopardy. Their league playoffs and their state playoffs are all just one bracket. And at the end of the day, they were the best team all year. And for Pekin, they get taken down by SHG. And just like New Trier, there will be no four-peat in this division as the Cyclones take the sixth and final division of the A-High State Championship.
Yeah, well said, Dylan. You gotta love the parity that you're even seeing downstate now. Sacred Heart Griffin, a new program, and they make their mark in that first year. So, with that being said, let's now take a look into BGHW, St. Viator, and how they're faring off in nationals going on right now as we speak. All right, Nationals time. And by the way, we will have a player on from each team, not only the girls team, but also BGHW and St. Viator after this week. But for now, of course, they are dialed in up in Plymouth, Minnesota. BGHW is playing in Class 2A, St. Viator is in Class 3A. There's a little bit of a difference between those two and how the curriculum moves, Dylan.
Yeah, so in the 2A division, there are 16 total teams, state champions from all different divisions around the country. BGHW finds themselves in the NHL division, which is them, the Central Cathedral Jets of California, the Omaha Junior Lancers of Nebraska, and the Belmore Merrick Bulldogs of New York. So they do a round robin, so that's three games. If they finish top two, in their division or group, they move on to the quarterfinals along with the other first and second place finishers of the four different groups. So for BGHW, they've already got some games underway, Luke.
Yeah, and looking into yesterday, Wednesday, March 18th, BGHW had a tight battle with Belmore Merrick, the Bulldogs from New York, as BGHW would eventually take this thing in overtime after they were trailing 3-1, by the way, as Ryan Antonucci scored the lone goal in the second period. After the break, 3-1 Bulldogs. And then how about this? Right away, Jackson Ronkowski wastes no time getting his first goal of the national tournament. And then Dominic Pasoli with 8:28 equalizes the game. And at the 8:36 mark of the first overtime, Cam Christopher, the combined player of the year in this division, comes up huge, and BGHW escapes in overtime. And of course, you mentioned the top two getting ahead in this pool. That first win is so crucial. And then on top of that, we just have a final from today. This game was at 10:45 a.m. Central Cathedral taking on BGHW, Illinois versus California, and it would have gone just about how you would have imagined with how good of a state Illinois is at hockey as they win 8-2 this morning. Although the shots were even at 23, which is interesting to see, but you have four Stampede skaters who end up with three or more points in this game. Gogarty with three, Selleck with three, Christopher with four, Ryan Costanza with a hat trick and assist for four as well. It's a dominant start for the Stampede.
Yeah, and Luke, I want to ask you as a former player and still current player in men's league, when you are in a tournament at this high stakes like this, BHW, after two periods, they're down 3-1. What does a comeback like that do for your confidence for the entire rest of the tournament
Oh,
in
it's
game one?
insane. I
Yeah.
mean, especially when you kind of just look at the resumes here. I would just guess. I haven't dove in too deep. I would assume that New York team is the toughest team that they'll play in pool play. So you feel like if you can get that win, don't change a thing about your play style. Keep doing your thing. Go into the next two. Get out with wins. They a running clock win today, and they'll look to try to continue that same momentum against Omaha tomorrow. But yeah, no, getting that comeback, especially in the early goings, will fuel the fire the rest of the way, and that's the exact right time period you want it to happen. Over to St. Viator now, as Dylan mentioned, playing in 3A. They play at 5:15. You might be seeing this before they play. You might not be. It might be Thursday night by the time you are viewing. This should be uploaded right before the game, though. And Norwich Hockey Club will be taking on St. Viator. But let's look at the previous matchup real quick between St. Viator and the Seacoast Spartans of New Hampshire, as St. Viator would take a 1-0 lead after the first. Matthew Ciccone, then Connor Sibigtroth into the second, 2-0 lead for the Lions, eventually cut in by the Spartans. But from then on, St. Viator would just keep finding a way to find answers, five different goal scorers, a nice performance from Joey Sclafani, who gets the nod in this game, stopping 20 of 22, and St. Viator starts 1-0.
Yeah, big win for St. Viator. And just the slight difference in this tournament, there's only 8 teams in this division, so it's two groups of four, and the top two in each group make the semifinals instead of the quarterfinals. So no doubleheader here. You play one game a day, even if you go all the way. And for St. Viator, I mean, this is a big win to start things out. This Seacoast Spartans team, they outshoot them 35 to 22, as you mentioned, Luke, five different goal scorers. And got to feel good for Joey Sclafani as well, who, Calder Turpin was, clearly made the main man in the state playoffs. And I'm not sure when the last time Joey Sclafani played was, but he's a great goaltender himself. He'd be the number one goaltender on a lot of different teams. It's just that Calder Turpin is so good. So that state championship win not only extends St. Viator's season, but gives him a chance to get in net. And he had a great game with 20 saves.
Absolutely, and it's only going to get tougher from then on for St. Viator. Norwich Hockey Club is 1-0 in this tournament. That's the matchup today, 5:15 on March 19th. St. Viator will be on the visiting bench. Norwich coming off of a 6-3 victory against Shattuck St. Mary's, which of course is a prolific prep academy up in Minnesota. And St. Viator will play Shattuck right after. So this, just by the scores, is the toughest game right now for St. Viator. And I'm very curious to see how this one is going to go. But we'll know when we know. You can always check the SHL Network Instagram for final score updates. Dylan does a great job with that. But other than that, Dylan, any final thoughts on Nationals before we move on?
Well, one thing that stands out to me is this result between Norwich and Shattuck St. Mary's. 6-3 win for Norwich, as you mentioned. Shattuck St. Mary's, I mean, this is a team, Luke, that has won the national championship at the highest level, I believe, for the last 3 years, including, Luke, in 2023, a 10-0 drubbing of New Trier Green in the national championship game. So, I don't want to put any disrespect on Norwich, but I wouldn't see them as a team to beat Shattuck St. Mary's by a final score of 6-3.
No, right. I
Yeah,
mean,
so yeah, it just that it seems like the competition is open and you talk about parity and we don't know these teams as well as we know our Illinois teams, but that's a big result, especially for St. Viator, who finds Shattuck St. Mary's in their pool. So if they can get a win over Norwich and make it 2-0, I believe that clinches the semifinals for them with 6 out of 6 points heading into that last game against Shattuck St. Mary's. And we could easily see those two teams rematch in the national championship as well. So it's exciting stuff. And, obviously we're going to have the national championships hosted in Chicago at some point because I am
right.
definitely missing out. I'd love to get out to these games and watch them in person. But by the way, if you do want to watch these games, they're all on USA Hockey TV, which is a paid service, by the way. But it gives you access to the broadcast of these games, live barn style, right? So there's no commentary, no alternate angles, which is unfortunate, Luke, for the national championships with, how spoiled we are here in Illinois with the
Right.
great work of Jimmy the Wiz and all of our great commentators. But still, it's a way to watch and it's a way to keep up with St. Viator and BGHW as they look to keep their seasons going as long as they can, and both are hoping that that lasts until Sunday morning for the national championships.
Our last segment on our second to last episode of the year jumbled that up. But we got two questions to go over here, starting off with Ballman_5. Who are the teams to beat in Nationals for both St. Viator and BGHW? I feel like we just alluded to that a little bit, but I think to tack on to truly apply a team to beat for both sides, it's a great question. And just looking at what BGHW has had so far, I think that Bulldogs team from New York will be tough to play again, considering they were taken to overtime last time. And then with St. Viator. Norwich, man. I mean, the fact that they beat Shattuck 6-3, that's scary. I'm wondering if you have any different opinions here, Dylan.
Yeah, Luke, I mean, I'm gonna go outside of their pools and potential bracket semifinal and final meetings. I'm looking at South Kent, the South Kent Cardinal from Connecticut. I had the opportunity to go to Jamestown, New York this year and broadcast several games for the Governor's Cup. And there were a lot of really talented programs in that tournament, including Culver, who's also in the 3A division. But South Kent, they won that Governor's Cup championship with a dominant tournament. I think they got the running clock in three of their five games all the way to the final. And based on what I've seen, again, we don't know too much about these teams, but I think that if Viator finds himself meeting with South Kent in any round outside of pool play, that could be a tough opponent to overlook. And then for BGHW, I'm looking at North Broward Prep out of Florida, the Florida State Championship. Actually, not only North Broward Prep, but also Notre Dame Prep, who are both in the USA division. Those two teams were both regulars at the SHL Showcase when it was a little bit bigger than it was this year. And both of them had pretty good efforts in that SHL Showcase. So for them to be in 2A, I think that's going to be a tough test for BGHW if they meet up with either of them.
Great answer. And lastly, we have from Hunter underscore K41. Thoughts on York this year? I'm assuming that is a recap of how they've done. And to be honest with you, I was really impressed. I wasn't sure exactly what was going to happen. I know Evan Poulakidis is an incredible coach. I did not know the roster that he was going to have. And in the end, there was insane depth on that team. You look at all the offensive guys, and then the goaltending issue at the start of the season. The fact that they got that fixed, I know, I know they got eliminated in the quarterfinals, but I really would look at this season as a victory for the Dukes, being able to do what you did, and now the foundation you're building with this new coaching staff. I mean, the Dukes are going to be scary eventually if they eventually start to really land. I think they're just waiting on that star offensive player like some of the top teams have because you have multiple units, but you feel like on some of the other top teams, there's a top guy you can look at who's just able to deliver at any given moment. When they have that, they'll check the box to be a really, really good team next year after what was, I would say, a successful season this year, Dylan.
Yeah, and Luke, it's tough because the state championships is single elimination. So you could say, yeah, they got upset, whatever, in the Elite Eight. But really, at the end of the day, they finished as the fourth seed in the SHL and the A High State tournament. That's a really good year for York. A York team who, by the way, has made the state championship as a seven seed. So they just keep climbing up these seeds. And yeah, disappointment in the playoffs, but they did have that big comeback series win over Lake Forest as well in the SHL playoff, where they lost the first game and then bounced back in a big way to win the next two. For Evan Polakidis and Ben Stein, the rest of the coaches over at York, that's always an impressive year when you're taking over a brand new program, kids that you're just meeting for the first time at the start of the season, and you coach them to something like that. Evan Polakidis got Coach of the Year for that very reason. So I thought for York, they really impressed me. They had a lot of really exciting box scores, or they were involved in a
Right?
lot of exciting box scores, especially early on in the season. They had the big comeback win over St. Viator at Allstate Arena in the regular season. They took the season series over St. Viator, quite frankly, and that's the state champion. So I think York and GBS were the only two teams to win two out of three SHL regular season meetings over St. Viator. Actually, New Trier also did. Um, that's the third team, but third and only team. York has a really bright future ahead, like you said, freshman Levi Brown in net. He's going to be between the pipes for many years to come for this Duke squad, and I think that they have a really bright future.
Any questions or comments you have still in your mind, don't forget, check the SHL Network Instagram next week, and we will have a little questions and answers pod for you to cap off the final questions of the year. But for now, closing off on the second to final episode, Dylan Ward, my partner. My name is Luke Jordan. We will see you next week with some special guests as well. We
Yeah.
cannot wait to bring it to you.
Luke, next week is going to be really special. It's going to be our best podcast yet and a great finale. We'll have three special guests, as you mentioned. We'll talk about nationals and just put a bow on the season. Looking forward to it.
And that we will do. Take care, folks, and enjoy some Nationals action. Enjoy some March Madness. Enjoy it all. March always a great sports calendar year. And we'll talk to you next week.